The Minnesota Vikings had a very rough 2020 to say the least. They started out 1-5, their defense was atrocious for most of the year, and it really culminated in a Christmas Day loss to the Saints, in which they gave up 52 points and 6 rushing touchdowns to Alvin Kamara, and were memed and mocked on Twitter, and rightfully so after that tumultuous game. But in the 2021 offseason, they went out and got tackle Dalvin Tomlinson. They will have the return of defensive tackle Michael Pierce, and they will return 3 Pro Bowlers that missed a lot of time in 2020. Those, of course, being Anthony Barr, who missed most of the season. He only played 1 game and then was done. Danielle Hunter, who missed all of 2020. And, of course, Pro Bowl linebacker Eric Kendricks, who played about 10 games last year, got hurt in a pregame warm-up, and then was done for the year. So there is a lot to look forward to for the Vikings in 2021, but in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we are going to discuss why they will not win the Super Bowl in 2021. And fellow Vikings fans, I am myself a Vikings fan, what I want to say and what I want to reiterate is this is a series, so do not take it personally, and as why I'm going to point out why they will not win the Super Bowl in 2021, do not take it that hard, because it is not meant to be taken like that, like other fan bases have. But anyways, we are going to dive in why they will not win the Super Bowl, and it is going to be a lot more than just, oh, well, Kirk Cousins sucks, because that's a casual take, and B, most of the time simply not true when it comes to Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. So before we dive into why they will not win the Super Bowl in 2021, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. And we begin today's video discussing the Minnesota Vikings with their schedule. It starts out in Cincinnati and then goes to Arizona, followed up by 2 home games, and really 3 home games, but the next 2 home games are Seattle and Cleveland, and then they play Detroit, which I do think at this point in time would be a win for the Vikings. But without a doubt, those first 4 games are very difficult. At Cincinnati, with the return of Joe Burrow, with all of the receivers they have, certainly won't be easy. I do expect a Vikings win in that game, but it certainly won't be easy by any means. And then they play the next week in Arizona. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings start out 2-0 as easily. I wouldn't be surprised if they start out 0-2 with those first 2 road games. Then to come home and play versus the Seahawks and versus the Browns. Again, I would not be surprised to see this team start out 3-1 or 1-3. It could really go either way, and it wouldn't surprise me. Now, the next 3 games after those are, the next 2 games are versus Detroit and at Carolina, and I do expect the Vikings to win both of those at this point in time. Then they have a Week 7 bye, and then they play off the bye the Cowboys on Sunday night, at the Ravens, at the Chargers, versus the Packers, and then at the 49ers, which certainly those 5 games off the bye are not easy to say the least. So very quickly, we could have 2 losses or we could have 7 losses, and when there are 7 teams, you would think that the Vikings could get in the playoffs in the top 7 seeds, because I do think the NFC West will be beating up on each other all year. But those 7 games that we just said versus the Seahawks, versus the Browns, and then of course those 5 games coming off the bye certainly are not easy. It's going to be very difficult for this team to consistently win games. Now, is any NFL game easy? Even the 2008 Lions and the 0-16 Browns from a few years ago, they're not easy. There's still so much research and work that have to be done from each team to beat them every single game. But again, these teams are going to be difficult for the Vikings to beat, and it could be a reason why they did not win the Super Bowl in 2021. Now, another reason that I kind of want to pair with the schedule for the Minnesota Vikings in 2021 is the continuity or lack of from some of the players on the team, like Patrick Peterson, like Dalvin Tomlinson, and like Michael Pierce. And of course, we can't forget safety Xavier Woods, in addition to all of the other guys that are new on the team. Now, a reason why some teams struggled at the beginning of the 2020 season was due to a lack of continuity. They weren't familiar with each other, and it was a reason why the Browns at times struggled in early 2020 was because they weren't familiar with the system yet, and we could see that follow over into 2021. Now, I do think the preseason will help with that. Obviously, in most preseasons, in most NFL seasons, when there isn't a virus that is a once-in-a-century type thing, that obviously affected some things at the beginning of seasons because teams like to wrinkle some things out in the preseason season, and that could be a reason why the Vikings do not win the Super Bowl in 2021, is that lack of continuity with another. And you could see that early in the season. If they start out 1-3 or 1-4, you could definitely see that being a reason why they would not win the Super Bowl in 2021, is that lack of continuity and lack of familiarness with each other, more so by the last 4 players that they added than the previous front 7 that they've had for the past 5 years. Now, moving on to the second reason, and this reason is a lot more than just Kirk Cousins. Now, are we going to talk about Kirk in depth here? Yes, but the reason why we are bringing up Kirk Cousins is it relates back to the schedule. Now, looking at this, and in order for an NFC team to get the number 1 seed, I would expect an NFC team to have 14 wins. To be 14-3 would probably secure the number 1 seed. And when you look at the Vikings 2021 schedule, I certainly think they're going to lose more than 3 games. And the question that I would then ask is, do you think the Vikings can realistically go on the road to and win in multiple places like Seattle, like Green Bay, like Tampa in the playoffs if they need to, with not only Kirk Cousins as their quarterback, but with everything on the line? And beating players like Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady is not something a lot of players can do. Of course, Kirk Cousins, if this were to happen, would take the brunt of it like he does with mostly everything, but I don't think the Vikings would be able to go to multiple locations like that in preceding weeks and just beat those teams in the playoffs with everything on the line. I certainly don't think that's an easy feat for any team, let alone, for lack of a better word here, a Kirk Cousins-led team. But again, that is not going to be easy for Kirk Cousins, for Kyler Murray, for Russell Wilson himself to even go to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in back-to-back weeks. We've seen that in the past, and it's nothing new. Those teams are the best of the best, and there's a reason why the Packers have went to back-to-back NFC Championship games, and there's a reason why Tom Brady has 7 rings. His teams are always good, and he is due in large part to that. So for a team, let alone just the Vikings, to go to those places in back-to-back weeks is going to be tough, and it would not simply fall on Kirk Cousins' shoulders, but it would fall on the whole team because those teams are just generally very tough to play against. Now, another reason why they will not win the Super Bowl in 2021 is the defense. And it's not because the defense is bad, because when you look at the Vikings 2021 defense and the starters, I would like to think it is pretty good. There's multiple Pro Bowlers back there, and Patrick Peterson, by the way, he had a rough 2020 for his standards, but he will be back. He did not have a lot of help in 2020, and the same can be said for All-Pro safety Harrison Smith. Harrison did not have a good season for his standards, and what we are accustomed to him doing in 2020, but again, the help, or definitely in Harrison's case, lack of, will be proven when he is a Pro Bowler in 2021. So if you want a prediction out of this video, it is that Harrison Smith will be a Pro Bowler in 2021, but when you look at this team, there is not necessarily a lot of depth outside of the defensive line. Now, the defensive line is pretty good. They do have players like Danielle Hunter, both the defensive tackles, and then, of course, on the other side, Sheldon Richardson and DJ Wonnum. And then, of course, there are a few other guys, like Patrick Jones, for example. But when looking at the linebacking core, if Anthony Barr or Eric Hendricks gets injured again for foreseeable time, I mean, outside of Troy Dye, this linebacking core isn't exactly where you go, man, the Vikings are one of the deepest linebacking cores in the NFL, because that is certainly not the case. And football and injuries are a thing. Football and injuries are going hand in hand. It just is what it is. When you have men running at each other as fast as they can with as much force as they can, what exactly do you think is going to happen? Injuries are a large part of the game, and unfortunately, obviously, a lot of non-contact injuries are a part of the game. That's, again, just the way it is. When you have 250-pound men running at each other full speed, and not necessarily even helmet to helmet or plays like that, but injuries are a part of the game. And if the Vikings don't stay healthy this year, which, by the way, no team will stay healthy, even the team that is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in February next year will have ran into injuries at some point. It just depends how severe these said injuries are for their football team. It's going to depend on the Vikings whether or not they can stay healthy for a full 17-game season, and obviously I do not think that they're going to, but that again goes for every team. Not to say the Vikings are more fragile than another NFL franchise, because again, I'm not saying that, but I do think that with injuries, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, that will limit what they can do in 2021. And as we close up today's video, there is one last point that I want to make clear when talking about the Vikings 2021 season that could also go wrong. They do not have the same offensive line that they had last year, and tackle Riley Reiff was very good in 2020. And to expect Christian Darrisaw, a first-round pick, to come in and play as good as Riley Reiff did in 2020, which was give up 0 sacks and have very few penalties, well, I certainly wouldn't expect that from Christian Darrisaw this year. Now, could he be a future All-Pro? Yes, again, but I wouldn't expect that from a rookie left tackle. Now, if Christian wants to go ahead and surprise me and be an All-Pro rookie, by all means, Christian, do that. I would enjoy that. But that could be another reason why the Vikings don't win the Super Bowl in 2020. Now, as we wrap up today's video, I do want to say, Vikings fans, this is not just slamming the Minnesota Vikings. I myself am a Minnesota Vikings fan, and I do think there is potential here for a very deep playoff run from this team. This, again, is a series, and as we close today's video, if you are still watching, thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would help the YouTube channel grow, and it would mean the world with YouTube's algorithm. Anyways, until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.